Everybody, welcome back to Sojo, another fabulous episode with some really unique insights on this one from Bria Griffin and kind of looking from the outside in, if you want to say that, being on the back end of sports and kind of putting it all together to give the production that each game is Bria. And she starts off in Atlanta and currently in Colorado. Her unique journey in the sports world, more in the professional side of things, is really eye-opening, and it's fun to hear her experiences and the leaps that she took and how it ended up being such a positive experience for her and getting her to where she is now, wearing the current jersey of Director of Recruiting Operations at Colorado State University for their football program. So from Atlanta, Georgia, being a ball girl for the Atlanta Dream to now working in football over in Colorado. So really cool insights from her, really different perspective because it isn't an athlete on the field doing something, but someone in the back of the scenes that made her whole career within sports and how that journey went. So hope you guys enjoy it. And without further ado, here's Bria. All right, here with Bria. Very excited to have Bria on the show. Thanks for being a part of this. Thank you so much for being here on Sojo.
Thank you for having
And
me.
yeah, absolutely. Very excited to kind of learn about your journey and everything to where you are. So this will be fun. This will be fun. So I know where you're at now over there at Colorado State, but kind of give us the background. Where did it all start? How was sport, something important to you? Who kind of passed that torch? Who got you started going with sports?
Absolutely. So I got started with sports while I was living in Atlanta. That's Atlanta's home for me. And my mom actually, she has worked for the Braves, the Atlanta Dream, and the Falcons. So
Very cool.
it's been a pretty cool experience watching her grow her career through sports and me now kind of like taking that torch and kind of running with it essentially. But while she worked for the Dream, I was a ball kid. So I did that all through middle and high school. And then when I got to undergrad at Howard, it was my first summer after freshman year. I was a business and basketball operations intern for the Dream. And for me, that was like, oh, this is like what I want to do. This is kind of like where I belong.
Yeah.
And so I did that for that summer. And then my summer after my sophomore year, I interned with the Washington Mystics in community relations. And then I took time off just trying to graduate. I went to school. I had a little too much fun. And at one point I thought I wanted to like go to law school and be an agent. And I took the LSAT and I bombed it. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to figure it out at a later date. So I graduated from Howard and I got to Georgetown. Was taking classes at Georgetown during my master's program. There's a portal. And so the portal has like all of these jobs and internships that were available to us at the time. And
Okay.
so I found the director of football operations position with Georgetown football in the portal. And it was just by happenstance. I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply. I'm just going to give it a go. Whatever happens, happens. And I interviewed for it and I got it. And so I was their DFO I did 3 seasons. And then once I left Georgetown, I went to the United States Air Force Academy, worked with women's basketball. I was their director of ops, video, and administration. And I did that did I do that I think I did that for 3 seasons as well. And then I
Nice.
ended up here at Colorado State. So I have a unique journey of like switching between women's basketball and football, but definitely
Yeah.
have realized like football is like my pride and joy. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's so cool. It's cool to just see all the different stops you were at along the way for sure. But I mean, let's talk a little bit about your mom. I mean, that's really cool. Her background already in sports. Do you really feel like that is kind of what opened the door for you then, as far as like wanting to pursue something in sports?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
that if that avenue wasn't there, because like I would be at work with her. Like when she worked for
Mhm.
the Braves, like I would be right there. Like if she had to stay late, she would come pick me up and then we're back in the building. So I spent my time in the office. So it's kind of like that's not really all I knew, but it was in the moment that was what I what I had known for so long. So it felt
Yeah.
almost natural to explore that avenue.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely. And I think your perspective is really cool because I think a lot of when you think about sports, people are typically on the athletic side, on the field and stuff, but this is more on the back end. Like you really got to see the inner workings of
mhm,
what makes it all work, you know. It's a production in the end.
absolutely.
It is a whole production. It's a team. And so you get to see all that back end stuff. It's from such a young age. Like that's such a unique experience that you got to have there. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. As far as that goes, so I know you said your mom was doing that. When you were little, were you playing sports yourself too, as well?
I was a cheerleader.
Yeah,
That was like I did cheer and dance. That was kind of like my avenue. In
yeah,
terms of sports, it's so funny because my mom has now been like, if I had known this was the way that you were going to go, I would have actually let you play a sport. But I
yeah,
think, and I've seen it from like experience from my friends, like once you explore or like play a sport, wanting to like work in it becomes a whole different story. And it's like you want to more so remove your identity from that sport. So I think that if I did end up playing like basketball or soccer or softball, like I would be like, oh no, we're gonna figure something else out. So
no, that's cool though. So you did cheer and dance,
I
you
did. I
know,
did.
and end up doing recruiting for football. So how long did you do cheer and dance? Was that all the way up till high
I
school or just a couple of years when you were little?
I cheered all the way through my freshman year of college. So,
Okay,
but
nice.
I can, so I used to tumble. I can still tumble. Like I just tested my skills out last week. Like I still have it. Does it hurt? Yes. But I still have my skills. So right now, my new mission is at least once a year to make sure that I maintain my backflip until I can't anymore.
Hey, I love that. I see too many people that are athletic and do so much with it, and then you get to later years and you never would have guessed
Absolutely.
because it all went. So no, that's cool to hear that you're still able to do some of that. And so cheering and you said up to your freshman year in college. So did you go to college with a scholarship for cheering or like with that idea that you were going to be cheering in college, or how did that kind of come about?
I knew I wanted to cheer in college. But I went to college to go to college, like no
Yeah.
scholarship, kind of straight vibes. Like of course,
Yeah.
I always knew college after high school was always the next step, but I didn't go for sports. I just went to be a regular student and tried out for cheerleading, and I did it for one season, and that was kind of it. So
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And how was that experience though, as far as your freshman year of cheer versus, all the years before high school and all that?
it was different.
Yeah.
It's different, especially, and I know watching like our players grow and develop especially when they leave high school, it's like stepping into a space where everyone's the best. Like that's why we're all here. It's like you're not the leader of the pack. Like everyone is the best. So it was a unique experience also, me balancing being away from home. Because when I graduated from high school, it was like I'm never coming back. Like I'm gonna go not as far as possible, but like I'm gonna go far, and I'm going to do my own thing. So trying to cope with never really being away from home or from family, and then trying to navigate being also in a high academic environment again where everyone's the best. going to cheer were also like everyone is great. Everyone can flip. Like everyone, is awesome. It was definitely a culture shock for sure.
No, that no, that would make sense. And so getting to kind of experience sports, being in the background of it, you definitely have a really, unique background as far as seeing some of those relationships that are able to be built, behind closed doors and that other people might not see. So now you're at school, you start to see this is what you want to do. You want to kind of pursue a path in sports.
Mhm.
So, was there a specific person that you met, maybe in college or something that really helped you along the way? Maybe a mentor, something that really guided you saying, hey, this is what I want to do? Maybe your mom. I mean, it sounds like she had a lot of experience already, but
He definitely adds her 4 cents very often. So, mom's never too far away. But I think that I have been blessed to be around people or garner a network that hasn't just looked out for, like, they have just looked out for me. So I can call on multiple people that I've crossed paths with. And I think my networking more so took off when I got to Georgetown. Once I really started to hunker down on, no, seriously, like this is what I want to do. And I don't think even in that to that point, like I didn't start relying on my network until honestly within the last 6 months. It's like, things have like tried to grow and develop in terms of like what's next in my career. And I'm placing phone calls like, I need advice. Like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, it's unique because like when people say like your network is your net worth, like that's 100% true. Like, I don't think some of the decisions that I've had to make would have been easy as they have been without the people that have been in my corner. So
okay.
it's more so like I very much so believe in building a network and having I treat everyone as family. That's even how I treat my recruits. Like when you come to campus, you are a part of a family. Like I believe in Southern hospitality through and through. So it's the same thing. So yeah.
That makes sense. So, getting into your first opportunity as
Mhm.
director of football operations, tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more about that. I mean, you're the DFO of a program. Like that's got to be a lot of stress. Not a lot of people understand what goes into that. So, give us a little bit more on those 3 years over there.
It was stressful, but it was fun. And it was unique as well because I at the time was probably like 23, 24. So I am really trying to figure out how not to lose my own head off my body. But it was awesome, an awesome experience because Coach Scarlotta, he would just look at me and he'd be like, figure it out. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he would just be like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, don't come in here, ask no questions. Like, see ya, go figure it out. And for me, that experience, that was like really my experience summed up in a nutshell was every step of the way figuring it out, whether it went right, it went wrong. Of course, there was feedback in the end once I did figure it
Mm.
out, just how to execute better. But
Yeah.
it was that experience, those 3 seasons was so awesome to me because I got to figure out myself. I got to figure out how I operate, what makes me tick, like what I need to thrive. And granted, every stop that I've made thus far, like I'm still figuring those things out. But my time and experience at Georgetown really set the foundation for who I am and who I want to be. And I think I am extremely grateful. Not I think I know. I'm extremely grateful for that experience because not many people get such a role, especially at such a young age, and have
Mhm.
the flexibility to grow in that role. Like I didn't have to conform to how someone operated. I got to figure out how I operated in the same space of learning how Coach Scar operated and what works best for him and how I operate.
Yeah.
So it was an opportunity that I definitely don't take for granted for sure.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. And such a young age, to your point, being able to see all that stuff figured out, but also at the FCS level. And I don't think people, if you've never been in the backside looking, managing sports on the back end, the FCS level, you wear so many hats. It's not just one job. You don't have a massive team. It's very much you're doing multiple things. You're scheduling, flights, meals, whatever it is, camps. Like you're involved in so many different aspects of it.
Mhm.
And so I think it probably set you up really well for also having that role to be ingrained in so many different areas, and then what a DFO would be at a P5 school, for example.
Absolutely. And even as I've progressed, like I tell people all the time, there's nothing that I can't accomplish because of that space. Like even now, like I say it all the time, anything is possible. I don't
Yep.
accept no because like it's feasible. You just have to find a way and weave through it, and you have to think on your toes and think quickly. And like you said, like at
Yeah.
the FCS level, you really don't have much either in terms of like resources. So when you have to think quick on your feet, I developed the thinking quick on my feet for sure. Like, oh, that's going wrong. All right. Now the way I operate is okay, this is the plan, just in case something goes wrong. Plan B is figure it out. So if I have to pivot, we can pivot without stress. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. So as far as, being a DFO, what would you say your responsibilities were, I guess, what were your basic responsibilities, but then what was that broader circle that also kind of tied into it for someone that might not know, what a DFO does?
basic responsibilities, making sure we get to where we travel to on time. So we actually didn't fly. We traveled everywhere on bus.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, so that was an experience in itself. I was the food girl, so making sure everybody ate, um, making sure that everything in terms of the office was squared away. So I also tackled receipts. I helped with our camps. I didn't do much in recruiting at the time, but I did a lot of like the day to day tasks, making sure everyone is squared away. And then on game days, like once everybody's like on the field and squared away, I would take pictures. I don't know how I got that role,
Hmm.
but I ended up with the camera in my hand. So I still to this day I'm not sure, but just keeping I'm really say like keeping everyone on track. Like I was
Yeah.
practically the team mom. Like
Yeah.
even now, like whatever anybody needs to get it done and make sure that it's done right, Bria will do.
No. And uh, I loved asking you that because I think, like I said, the FCS level, you have your basic and then photographer. Like that's definitely not something you would tie with the DFO. But
Absolutely, absolutely.
I love, if you don't know, I love the DFOs in the program. They're absolutely fundamental. I loved ours when I was over at Weber State. Derek Lucan, awesome. And it was their team mom, uh, team dad for Derek, but it was so cool just to see everything that they did, and they just to the maximum they could. I mean, as far as making sure everybody had a cookie getting onto a plane
Mhm.
as we were flying to a game, like that's a big responsibility to figure out, but you don't think about it in the back end. You're just like, oh, sweet, we got cookies to go sit on our planes, like so
Exactly.
no, absolutely. A lot of respect there for that. So that's cool. I mean, you had all that experience with football, and then you went to women's basketball. So why the transition? Like what happened there?
So I essentially so my time at Georgetown. my 3 seasons, I wasn't paid.
Yeah.
I did all of that for
Yeah.
free.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it was one of those things where everyone is like, "This is like, we get it, like, you like this is awesome, but it's time to go make some money."
Yep.
And so I was applying to jobs in the football ops space, and things just weren't connecting. Everyone kept saying, "Oh, like, you need more experience. You need more experience." And I'm like, "Okay, but I've done this for maybe 2, 3 seasons. Like,
Yeah.
what more do I need? Like, help me understand." And so eventually I like at that point I was just like, now I'm just applying stuff. I'm applying to stuff. I'm applying to stuff. And the academy came up. I was on Indeed, academy came up, and I was like, I applied. I was like, oh, the United States Air Force Academy, like, haha, like, this is cool kind of interview. So I hop on the phone with Coach G, and I'm like, she's like, yeah, so you have no problem moving to Colorado. "Hmm, ma'am, huh, okay." Like, but at that point, I was so desperate that I was just like, sure. Like, not even,
Yeah.
to be honest, really knowing where Colorado is on the map. And I had 2 interviews with them, and I accepted the offer, and next thing I know, I was on a plane to Colorado. So, yeah.
That's a bold move. I mean, I know some people, everybody goes through that experience in life where you kind of just make the jump, but not even knowing where you're going really.
Yeah, it's definitely not your average jump for sure, and it's crazy to think that I've been in Colorado at this point for almost 6 years, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, that's a big jump. And
Yeah.
then so you get over to Colorado, and it's got to be different because I think this is really interesting too because it is the academy. I mean, that's going to
Mhm.
be different than almost everywhere else. So how is that? I mean, life at an academy is going to be completely different, and then tie in the sports aspect of it. Like, how was that for those years?
It was a unique experience.
Yeah,
I Now, I will say this, working at and I think I've been to all 4, 3, 4 academies. They are some of the most beautiful places that can ever exist on
yeah,
this earth. And so with the academy, it it's like your commitment to the country comes first, and then everything else comes second. So even now, for example, like when here at Colorado State, we get up in the morning, the first thing we do is practice. And then everything else falls kind of like falls behind it. At the academy, it's it's the academy academics first, sports comes second.
yeah,
And so it's one of those things too where you when you get into school, you have to get in for your academics. Like, yes, you can play basketball, you can be awesome in that area, but if you can't
hmm
get into school, we can't help you because again, your commitment to the country comes first. And so it was a unique experience because we like everyone was civilians except for one person on staff. And then we traveled regularly for the most part. Every now and again, we got to travel in like a military plane, but we were a part of the Mountain West. So it's the
yeah,
same. Like we did everything else sports wise that other schools would do. It's just they, are students for a military academy. Like they're normal,
yeah,
but they did go through basic training. So they're not really normal.
yeah.
Um, so yeah.
No, I mean that makes sense. I mean, you could almost coin the term like soldier athlete to the aspect because it
Mhm.
is, all the rigors that they're going through in the academy, schoolwork, all that is up front because that's why you're there. At the end of the day, you're there for that, and then
Yeah.
the sports is the back end of it. So, no, I think that's a good point too because when you hear the term student athlete, especially now with NIL and how everything's changing, there's a lot of different plays on that, but you see it there
Mhm.
at the forefront of it. It is the scholastic side of things, which is cool to see.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So with that, I will say, so you're in the Mountain West competing. Was it, and I mean, you get to see practices, run them, and different things, whatnot. Was it different coaching those student athletes versus other student athletes that you saw? Because I guess you could say they were under certain protocols at the academy, certain ways that they did things. Was it easier in a sense? Like, were they more respectful? Was it the same as anywhere else? Like,
I think it's the same as anywhere else. Like
yeah.
every student athlete, cadet athlete that I've come across have been absolutely respectful. Like I admire them even without when you look at without the service academy aspect,
Hmm.
like to be able to go to school and then come and compete for your sport at a higher level than most will with the utmost respect. Like they
Yeah.
everyone is the same to me. So
Yeah.
even with the cadets at the academy, like they were absolutely the same. They still, even though they were a part, cadets, they
Uh,
still have the same have the same issues. They still have boy issues. Like they still, have
yeah.
like familial problems and
Yeah.
like life
Yeah.
hits them just as much as it will hit you or I.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't much difference in that. It's just they took their careers one step further and
Mm,
added the military aspect.
makes sense. No, that's a fair point. So as far as you were working with the women's basketball, correct?
Women's basketball.
Okay. So how was that? You were with the men over there in football, and now you transition to helping women's athletics. How was that? Was that a fun experience? Tell me a little bit more about that.
It was a unique experience. So for me, I got my start in women's basketball. And so you switch over to football and you get into a space where men operate in a completely different standpoint that or energy base that women do.
Yeah.
So going from guys who really don't care, it's like as long as the job gets done, and if as long as it's fine, it's fine. But
Yeah.
I think that going to the academy really refined me in my role. It was unique because like I dressed up nicer for work. Like now I don't wear sweats to work, but I can be more like athleisure and casual. But
Mhm.
at the academy, I dressed up just about every day to go to work. And how I learned and I grew more so in my leadership and just refining what I learned from Georgetown and Coach
Mhm.
Scar. And so my experience was cool. Like basketball is different. Like actually being on that side of like traveling and being a part of like, making sure like food is squared away. It's like when it comes to football, it's you have 100 and what 10 student athletes, you have about 10 coaches and then a handful of support staff, but you're traveling for or you have 12 games in a season, right?
Mhm.
More if you're lucky. But then when it comes to women's basketball, it's like, okay, you're traveling 25 people in total, students, staff, coaches included, but you're traveling for 25 games out of the year. I used to joke and say, my home is for my clothes. Like I don't live there because I'm never home because we're always on the go. So that difference in itself was it was stressful and it was unique because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not used to all of this moving and shaking. Like yes, it's less people that you have to be responsible for,
Yeah.
but there's more pieces to the puzzle. So I think
Yeah.
basketball as a whole is like they have their trade-offs, but I would rather travel 130 people 6 times than
Yeah.
travel to 30 25 times. So,
No, I mean, that's a good point. I think about it, and it makes sense. Basketball teams, smaller numbers, whatnot. But then when you add in all the games and different days in the week, it's not just the weekends. I mean, if you're lucky, maybe you're getting a Friday night game in college
mhm,
football, but it's not all that often. So it's really you can structure it out, kind of schedule it out. But basketball's moving all over, and you're also kind of traveling more geographically in football right
mhm,
around your conference. You have a couple of games, but then football, you might fly to Hawaii for the Maui tournament or something, and then over to New York for another tournament. So
yeah,
yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot there. So it sounds like Georgetown, a lot of good experience there, young age, got to experience a lot of cool things, a lot of organization coming with basketball
mhm,
and learning all that. And then you make a jump from there to Colorado State, where you currently are,
mhm.
going back to football. 3 years at the academy before you made the switch then back to over to Colorado State?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, yes,
have
yes.
about 6 years experience, then you finally get into, you know, a D1 school for football how was that? I mean, how was the emotion first?
It was exciting. It was a long time coming for sure. Like I enjoyed my time at the academy, but also I realized I think very quickly that football was where I'd prefer to be.
Yeah,
Football, like I fell in love with football from a unique perspective that like no one I knew played football. Like I developed that love for the sport kind of on my own and through
yeah,
career, to be honest. And so going into women's basketball, I was like, oh, like I thought I would be okay because it's what I grew up on. But I
yeah,
realized very quickly, like, just because you grew up on something or you're used to something, it's not always what you think it's to be, but it may not
yeah,
really be where your passion is. And I learned that
yeah,
very quickly being at the academy that like, oh, like yes, this is what I know I have background in this, but this isn't really what my heart desires and it desires football. So getting back to football was exciting. Um I've been looking forward to the call for a really long time. So when I got it, I was like, oh, we are back in business. And so I moseyed my way right on up. It's a 2 hour drive from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins. And I immediately, because I went to go look for apartments, I immediately fell in love with the city. And I was like, oh, well, this is where I'm meant to be. It's a college
yeah.
town and it's very like homey and old school. And I stay like right behind the original center of what Fort Collins was. So I'm kind of in like a prime area as well. So it makes it
Nice.
all more better.
That's cool. No, that's cool. And you said something that I totally didn't even touch on. When you were at Georgetown,
Mhm.
you started off as a DFO, but I guess I didn't really think about that. Yeah, what made you want to go into football? Like, what was it that even to your point, you didn't have a background in football. It wasn't something that you were really, familiar with. So why? Why would you, like, to your point, you could have been basketball or anything, but football.
That would look cool.
Mm.
I
Hey,
wanted
that's fair.
I wanted something to do, and well, not I wanted something to do. I knew I needed something to do because I hadn't had much experience on my resume. In every other sport that I had, like basketball, I had been applying to internships, and I had didn't get them. But football said yes, so it's like, well, I'm gonna take it, and I ran with it. But I
Yeah.
literally thought it looked cool. I was like, oh, well, this looks cool. Let's try it. Why not? Like, I'm no stranger to just submitting an application because something looks cool. As long
Yeah.
right now, especially as long as it's in line with what I
Yeah.
want, yeah, let's why not? Let's try
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You definitely ran with it.
it.
Glad you did. I'm sure you're glad you did too. And man, that it's so cool. I love hearing stories like this because to your point, you have the background in basketball. You're trying for that, and you're getting turned down in the thing that you honestly at that time you had more experience and knowledge with, and the thing you didn't. They're like, yeah, we want this girl. She doesn't know, but yeah, that'll be perfect for us. So wow, what a cool, unique little plot twist there. But okay,
That's
so fell in love with football over there.
mhm.
So what was it that, why? What was it about football that made you really like, hey, I like this? Like you bought into the whole culture of like team, family, the logistics in the back end? Like what was it that bought you in?
I really think it was the logistics. It's the my time at Georgetown, I got to be a part of the background and then watching that for me, watching that play out on a Saturday afternoon, nothing beats it. I'm sorry. Like, and I
Yeah.
love basketball. Like, even, like watching, being behind the scenes and watching a basketball game on a Tuesday, Thursday night. Like, yep, that's cool. But watching just like the stands and watching everything that you've worked so hard on in the background kind of like play out in real life, nothing
Yeah.
beats it. And so I think that's how I fell in love with the sport so quickly. And
Yeah.
also, I've been lucky enough to have coaches around me that have been nothing short of awesome.
Yeah.
So it's kept my drive to continue to like push my career forward because I'm around great people and I get to see this product play out in real life. I'll
Yeah.
take it. I'll take it for
Yeah.
sure.
No, that's good points. I love hearing that. So Colorado State, you went over there, took the role for recruiting. So the role you currently have, was that the role that you first got there?
It was not. So my original
Okay.
title was director of on-campus recruiting, which you see most times often. And then I got there and in I think it was after season 1, I was like, well, I'm not a type of person to stay stagnant for long. Like I cannot sit still.
Yeah.
Um and so I had only been there for a couple of months and I was like, well, I would like to add more to my plate and change my title.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And so that's how I got the director of recruiting operations role. So
Yeah.
I have still all of on campus um, recruiting.
Mm.
And then I also have matriculation. So helping all the guys get into school. And then I also have housing. So I work with all of our guys that are on campus, making sure everybody has a home
Yeah.
and is safe. And then I also have stipends. So making sure that
Mm.
everybody has their money, which
Mhm.
actually I need to go text some guys back because they're missing stipends. But literally, like, I do a little bit of everything as
Yeah.
well. So I try to have my
Okay.
hands in the different pots around the building. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Get more experience that way too. I mean, just like you were doing over there at Georgetown, the more hats you wear, the more experience and opportunities you get. So that makes
absolutely.
sense. So as far as on-campus recruiting,
Mhm.
are we talking official visits, unofficial visits? Are you hosting those? Tell us a little bit that too, so people understand the role that you have.
Absolutely. So I do on campus on campus recruiting is unofficial and official visits. So unofficial visits are for example like a game day visit. So when you come to campus, well you communicate with us, let us know that you're coming to campus for a visit. We have like a little what is it? I don't know what's the best way to I have a phrase for it, but it's slipping my mind. I'm already in vacation mode. But we have like a waiting room where the coaches come up, they say hello to everybody. And then we take
Yeah.
everybody on the field. They get to watch the guys warm up, and then we take them into the stands, and it's like they're free to watch the game on their own. For official visits, we pay for everything. We do the pomp and circumstance when it comes to getting the right guys to commit to the program. So we pay for flights, hotels, meals, entertainment. Um, we do everything within compliance regulations. Okay, NCAA don't come for me, but we do everything in
In
regulation.
compliance here.
We do everything within regulation to make sure that the guys enjoy themselves, they have the best time, and they choose to make Colorado State their home. So
Yeah.
we just finished 3 weekends of June OVs. So it's been a long month of about 25 to 30 OVs in a month, but it's been awesome. So
Yeah. How was that experience? Because I don't know if you did. You said you didn't do much recruiting over there at Georgetown. So how was that when you came here? And I mean, it is a D1 program. There's money in the budget. But how did you kind of see that and see the whole recruiting background and how you're, putting on an entire show to basically sell someone on your campus?
I absolutely fell in love with it. It's so funny. They tell us all the time to treat the budget money as if it's our own money, and
Mhm.
I like to spend money, so that really doesn't help. But I enjoy the recruiting process or putting on this show
Yeah.
because it the decision that you make to attend a school in I know it's a different age now because people, the transfer portal is very much so alive and kicking. But
Yeah.
you make a decision, hopefully with the intention of you'll be there for 4 years. Those 4 years will carry you on for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
So I look at it as this is not only a permanent decision for a kid or student athlete, PSA, but it's also a decision for their parents. And so it's been awesome to build relationships with recruits that come on campus in an unofficial standpoint, and then we bring them back. We just had a commit last weekend. He came for an unofficial, we brought him back in an official capacity, and he ended up committing before the weekend was over. Like, that's why we kind of go all in because you're building those
Yeah.
relationships. And something that I admire about our staff and our coaches, we build those relationships. Like, we don't, like, premature offers are not a thing at all. Like, we offer you with the intention of it's a committable offer until the spot is taken. So we go through a
Yeah.
very genuine process because it's not just any decision. And even if you
Hmm.
come and you're there for a year or two and you leave, you still have those 2 years under your belt in terms of being a Colorado State Ram. And that experience still carries on with you, even if you didn't do the whole 4 years. So
Yeah. No, I love the insights. I love your perspective on it. And I like that you said it's a committable offer because I've definitely been on the back end seeing some recruiting done, some shady business, unfortunately, where they're just throwing offers out there, but they're not actual with real intent. They're just throwing out offers to put them out there and whatnot. But also timing is huge. They're committable up until a point, and
mhm.
we actually heard that last episode on the podcast with Liddell talking. He was going to commit to Utah, and it was like 3 hours prior to that call. Maybe it was 2 hours. somebody from California had just committed and the spot was gone. So,
Mhm.
but it changed his whole trajectory. He loved it. Ended up over there at Utah State. You're familiar with Utah State and Mountain West.
They have a
Um,
beautiful field, by the way. So
yes, yeah. The Maverick up there is very cool. It's a sweet spot. It's a sweet spot. So, no, it's a cool experience. Definitely that whole aspect behind recruiting, but it is changing, and I
it's
think that is something. How is that how have you guys discussed that? Because I know for myself, studying a lot into NIL, that's part of something I was doing for my master's, my thesis. But that aspect of NIL and how it's changing recruiting, how have you guys started to evaluate that and look at that as a staff, and how has that kind of affected some of your guys' decisions moving forward?
I don't have much insight on that. They actually keep the whole NIL process like bottled up
Oh, it's all
on
under wraps. Oh, okay.
it is a
No worries,
hundred
no worries.
percent under wraps. It's like when we have
Okay.
recruits on campus, coaches like
Yeah,
if anyone asks, you point them to me. Yes, sir. You don't have to you don't have to tell me twice, which is fine because it's like
yeah,
even just following the rules when it comes to recruiting is enough in itself. So like to start talking
yes,
numbers and NIL, it's okay. I
yeah,
rather not.
yeah,
I
yeah.
rather
No, that's a fair point. So the other aspect, though, the other curveball that has with recruiting is the transfer portal. Is that something, as far as I know, you're getting recruits that have played for 3 years now, and you're bringing them onto campus, and now
Mhm.
you're doing recruiting visits for that. So how is a a high school senior recruiting trip different from a junior coming over to your guys' place?
Transfer visits are our favorites.
Yeah,
We we enjoy them so much because we bring a high school athlete up for 48 hours. So they stay for 2 nights and they leave on day number 3. Transfers, you get 24 hours to figure this out. It's like we still absolutely wine and dine you. Like we also enjoy transfer visits because we go to the best restaurants in Fort Collins. Like we go to steakhouses. So it's a you get excited for those, but it's you have 24 hours to figure this out. You meet with academics, you meet with your position coach, and watch film, and we usually give them a little longer in that realm. And then you meet with Coach Norvell. Everybody that touches campus in an official capacity meets with Coach Norvell, and that's it because we treat transfer visits as a business decision. Like if
yeah,
you want to be wined and dined, which we still do, but if you are coming in with the high school mentality, then we don't all have the same intentions unless you're a transfer kid who hasn't really been recruited in that standpoint, then we go about it differently. But
yeah,
for those guys who have been through this process once, this is a business decision. This is
yeah,
what we have. This is what Colorado State is. You come in or you going. And it's that
yeah.
simple.
No, I like it. I like it. I totally understand that mindset. And so anyone that doesn't understand, that just looks at rivals and looks at recruiting, 5 stars, all that, there's a lot more that goes into recruiting, as you can hear from Bria. In the background, I mean, everybody's throwing out their best on what you're trying to show about your campus, because it is, to your point, you're selling them 4 years, ideally, to be at your school and get a great education, ideally, and graduate and go through that whole process and hopefully have positive experiences like you yourself have had at different institutions. And that's the same thing you're trying to give to these college athletes as well, these student athletes. So no, that makes great sense. So I got a couple questions I want to shoot your way. I love hearing about your whole journey. I'm going to transition a little bit, shoot some questions your way, and see just more about your life experiences and what advice you might have for other people and whatnot. But
Okay.
So your mom obviously has her own background in sports. You now yourself have your own background in sports. As far as being a female in this industry, what have been some of your challenges maybe that you've kind of gone through? And what are some of those experiences you'd be willing to share with any females that are listening that are maybe thinking about going into a career just like you?
I think that not only as a female, but just being someone in sports in general, the industry is slowly but surely becoming very what's the proper word? It's becoming very saturated. That's what I was looking for. And so it's one of those things where don't give up. I think that's something that I've realized in having people that I've encountered over the years, like not being able to, find jobs and kind of like giving up almost. Like, if this is something that you want, don't give up because there's something out there. And I think especially as we progress and we get into a space where NIL is growing and all of that stuff, like more jobs will open in the sports world, but you kind of have to ride the wave in order to reap the benefits of that. And
Yeah.
even for me, like as I've progressed, like I've really stayed hungry. It's like, okay, like once I get to, and it can be an Achilles heel at times, but even now, like, okay, I'm here. What can I do next? How can I make, myself better? And so I think those are the two things that being hungry and not giving up has really carried me through my career. And I think that because of that, like my issues or like the problems that I've encountered throughout my career,
Yeah.
they've become easier to manage because it's like it's it's like boom, like that drive. I don't know if it's the photo of the guy with the pickaxe and it's like and their gold is like right behind like a small little piece of dirt. Like
Yeah.
that's how I feel like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep going. Like I might be frustrated today. This might not have worked out. You know what? I'm very close to walking in there and putting in my 2 weeks notice. But I
Yeah.
know like what's on the other side of just keeping on fighting is pure gold. Oh.
Yeah. It has a little reaction thing. I didn't know about it myself actually.
Oh
So
wow.
that was that was kind of fun.
I wasn't expecting that.
I didn't expect that either. So no bloopers here. It's just we're just rolling. No, that's cool to hear. No, and it makes sense. I mean, your determination obviously pays dividends in the
Mhm.
end. So
Yeah.
what could you say as far as, I mean, this kind of ties into that question, but what sacrifices do you feel like you've made to get to where you are?
Ooh. Um, I can't even count the sacrifices on my hand, to be honest. I've missed birthdays. I've missed big moments. Um, I'm lucky, like even right now, that we take a very big family vacation every year. We leave tomorrow. That our family vacation is in line with the recruiting dead period. So it's like really my one time a year that I get to see all of my family in the same space. So I am blessed and lucky for that. But holidays, I've sacrificed. Um, I've missed a lot, and I feel like watching my friends, especially like do stuff like we're all really not married with kids, so everybody can kind of do as they please. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I can't do that because I gotta work. And
yeah,
everybody's like, you work so much. And I'm like, I do. But at some point, if you guys want to be in the box, chilling with everybody, the sacrifices that I make right now will get us, to that point. Like at some point, I'll be able to repay my family and my friends for their push and their efforts and their help. But right
Yeah.
now, really have to sacrifice my time because of where I am. And it
Yeah.
doesn't help either that I am so far. It would be
Mhm.
different if I was on the East Coast, then I'm a little bit more accessible than
Yeah.
most. But right now, I'm also in a landlocked state in the middle of nowhere. Like, not everybody's trying to visit Colorado, even though it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Fort Collins is beautiful. The mountains are beautiful, but it's not everybody's first choice of visiting. So,
Yeah. No, makes complete sense. And I like the ideology behind that of you're sacrificing a lot right now in kind of some of those moments, but it's with the intent of you're going to pay it back later on. You're going to do
absolutely.
something to be like, hey, I'm sorry about this. Like you can never fully forgive the moments, but you're like, but here's what I've done. Like, look at this, look where we are because of it. So I like that mindset. Like that's definitely a cool mindset to have. And to that point, yeah, you're not jumping on the flight every weekend to go to the East Coast. It's not possible. If it's close, maybe it works, but there's a lot outside of just a normal season that people don't see. Is you have this season, you're like, okay, then you're done in the off season, but it's not. The off season, it picks up, especially for you in the recruiting world. I mean, and the coaches, they're watching film, they're visiting players. Like, there's a whole lot, and then you just have a small window of vacation. Say, hey, go enjoy this, like
But
detox, and then
yep. But somebody's always asking for something. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So no, it's definitely a sacrifice. So I wanted to ask you, now you've been in the background of sports, you kind of seen it. What, I guess, what role do you feel like sports plays in the long run for some of these athletes?
I think it depends.
Yeah.
It really depends on the goals that people have.
Mhm.
Um, because for example, like when we had pro day March, my time is starting to run together, but I think pro day was in March on
Yeah.
campus. We had 9 guys that went through pro day. One
Mhm.
got drafted, 2 got signed. That's that's the reality. We
Mhm.
are sorry.
Okay.
We are in the process of um I think that it really just depends on what everyone's role is. But nowadays I'm also seeing a lot of guys who go through the um who go through like all 4 years and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna give up. Or we have a guy who he graduated and now he's a GA. We actually have two. We have two. So it's really like based off of just what people do. But like I always like encourage my players, like, yes, I get it. Like this whatever the final goal is
Mhm.
to go to the league, right? It's to buy my house, is to take care of everybody that took care of you. But what happens when it's not there anymore? What's
Mhm.
next? Like, let's think about that now so that when the time comes, we're not thinking about it later, or we're
Mhm.
not trying to have hoop dreams when we're 40. So,
Yeah.
but those conversations are important to me. And I really try to like sit, they call me auntie. Some kids call me auntie and I don't like it. But I really sit with them and we discuss like, okay, like what do you want to do? Like
Yeah.
what are your other options? Okay? You want to be an entrepreneur? What does that look like to you? What's
Yeah.
what would you like to do? Okay, well how can you take your major now or take what you're learning and learn and grow from there.
Yeah.
So I try to be like that driving force because, like I said, like I didn't come really from a athletic background from playing sports.
Yep.
So it's I try to give an outside looking in perspective because a lot of kids all they
Hmm.
know is, oh, I just want to go to the league.
Yeah.
Okay, but we gotta have a plan B, maybe a plan C to be on the safe side. So
Yeah. No, and that's why I was really excited too for this conversation because you do have a unique perspective. It's not just on the field, but you're looking at it from the other side of saying, hey, like I've seen basically what it's like off the field for a really long time. Like, how
mhm,
can we help you guys with that same transition? So, and
absolutely.
that kind of ties into my last question for you, and that is, how much of an impact do you think you have on these student athletes?
Ooh, that's a great question. I can only hope that my impact is what I think it is. Um, I enjoy like building relationships with the players. My office is the office where I call it a safe space. And I'm one of 4 women in the entire football department.
Yeah,
So, and I'm the only one of color. So I take my role in the space that I occupy very seriously. And
yeah,
so I keep like candy at my desk or, I always have, I'm the recruiting girl, so I have snacks. Um, but I treat my office as a safe space. And so
hmm,
guys can come in, we sit and we talk about real life. Come in, ask for advice from a woman's perspective. I'll give it
yeah,
to them.
yeah,
Same thing with I have students. I have 4, 5 interns. They're all girls. Same applies to them. They walk in the office,
yeah,
they close the door. I already know what time it is. Okay, let's talk. Let's be honest. Let's be transparent. Like one of my students, she just graduated in May, and so she's trying to enter the sports world herself. So it's like we
yeah,
have those conversations, and I am, of course, like age adjacent. So I'm like the big sister
hmm,
to, everyone. And so I think for me, do my best to impart what I've learned so far because I know that if I had somebody if I had, some people to assist me, not saying that I don't, but
yeah,
some people that were closer to my age that have been through what I've been through now telling me, okay, like let's look at it from this perspective. I may have
yeah,
been because not everybody listens to mom and dad off rip because it's like, well, you're
yeah,
older. What do you know?
yeah,
But
yeah,
if someone again closer to 30 who's like not again like not too far off but who has
yeah,
just experienced what they're experiencing, I think that I would have handled a lot of situations differently because of like that adjacency.
yeah.
So
No, makes
I
sense.
try my best to impart what I can when they ask, when they
Yeah,
listen. Um
yeah.
so yeah.
No,
It's one of my favorite parts of my job, I will say that for sure.
yeah, no, and I think you make a good point too, because even as a player, your coach might not be close to your age. They can't relate to
Mhm.
that. You might have a coach that, it's 45, 50, trying to tell you how certain things are, real life is, whatnot. But then you also have that aspect of it's your coach and you feel like they're always trying to get the athletic side out of you. But where you're just, going in there and you can have a real conversation, I think that is a unique privilege that you have, especially on that staff. To your point, there's only 4 women there too. That's going to already be a unique perspective. Then the only one of color, like that's going to also be a unique perspective. I was going to ask, I know Howard is an HBCU. Do you feel like some of the education you got there at Howard has kind of helped you in giving you more insight to conversations with some of these student athletes that come in and talk to you for life advice even?
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool.
I love my Howard experience. I was actually just having a conversation with someone about my Howard experience, and of course, people see Howard as an HBCU, but it's still diverse. There's
Yeah.
diversity in the aspect. So I have friends who grew up completely different than I did, and vice versa. So I've been able to take part and learn from them. And so
Mhm.
bringing those experiences, and Howard is unique in itself, where again, it goes back to the conversation. Everybody's great. So, like, what do you bring to the table? Howard brought
Mhm.
out a different side of me in a good way that helped me really thrive and survive in this career. So, I tried to also, too, yes, impart that knowledge on, okay, you're here. It's time to handle business, right? Everybody's great, but what do you bring to the table? Especially like the transfer guide. Okay, you're coming in to this space right here. How can you help us be better? Because you're right now you're here. You're not there, you're
Yeah.
here. So those experiences, all of them. So being at Howard, and again being a minority at Georgetown, to,
Yeah.
all these experiences really coincide to one.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Your experiences, your whole journey is this been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your time, Bria.
Thank you.
And this is kind of the end, so I want to give you the last kind of closing segment here. Is there any personal shout outs that you want to give to anyone? Any like events, any charities, any additional advice you want to throw out there? This is your moment.
Oh, thank you. I would like to say first things first, thank you to all of my family. So my mom, my grandma, my uncle, my dad, my brothers. To my family, thank you for supporting me through this journey. I wouldn't be here where I am without you guys' support. To my friends, also, thank you for holding it down and not leaving your friend who is an absolute workaholic, because she has to be. And thank you to all of those that I've encountered on my career journey. It's been nothing short of amazing. And I know that this is just the beginning. Like, I've accomplished so much along the way, but this is really still just the beginning. So thank you. I have a couple things in the works that I won't speak on yet. I don't
All right, all
want to
right, all
jinx
right,
it.
all
Don't want to jinx it
right.
quite yet, but hopefully you can bring me
Okay,
back and we
okay.
can talk about it one day. And my little last bit of advice is really, don't give up. Find who you are in the midst of your experiences that you are in right now. Be where your feet are. I'll take that as a little bit of advice for myself as well right now. But be where your feet are. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the ride, because you only get it once. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Bria. This has truly been a privilege to hear your insights, your experiences from everybody. So that's all we have for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And as always, don't forget, live Sojo.